Call us to order for the City of Grand Rapids Planning Commission on Thursday, October 10, 2024. You can see our agenda posted on the screen. We'll work through the cases by inviting a member of the planning department to come forward and present the case to the commission. Then we'll invite the applicant up to add additional information about the case. Then we'll open up a public hearing to invite members of the public to come up to the microphone and share any of their thoughts on the case. Then we'll invite the applicant back up again for anything else to add. And then the commission will deliberate on the case and make our decision. Staff has provided for the commission language that is both in support and against each resolution. And so if we appear to be reading language that has been prepared, that may be true, but the decision that we make is not pre-decided in any way. Do any commissioners have any conflicts of interest with any of the cases today? Seeing none, we can begin.
The first item on the agenda is a request to use 1300 Front Avenue Northwest as a banquet hall and live entertainment venue with alcohol service. A parking waiver is also requested. Now, there's an existing use in the space under consideration called Studio Core 3. It's a creative art studio, and it sounds like they do all sorts of really interesting things. I'll defer to the applicant to talk more about that. That use is an allowed use. It's a permitted use, and so that has been in establishment there for a while, and that is going to continue. What is under consideration is not the existing use, but a proposed use, using that space for an assembly use, for banquet hall and live entertainment, a rental venue with alcohol service. So the property is on the east side of Front, located along the Grand River. The site's about an acre in area, and it's an industrial building. It's in an area of many small industrial buildings, very similar to this one. There is a two-story office portion of the building, and then at the back, it's a warehouse area. So currently, there are 3 tenants in the building, I believe, and Studio Core 3 occupies a second floor office space, as well as the warehouse space that you can see in this photo in the back. And that is the space under consideration. I'm just going to go forward to show you that. So there's the 2-story office space in the front. Studio Core 3 leases this warehouse area. It's about 7,000 square feet, give or take, and it is this area that's being proposed for use as the entertainment venue. This warehouse portion, as I said, is fairly sizable. Although the venue could accommodate up to 450 people, it is not sprinkled. So it is not fire suppressed. So without fire suppression, it can accommodate no more than 99. So the building official is setting the maximum occupancy at 99. So, although more people could fit into the space. The applicant will require that any alcohol served be done by licensed alcohol caterers. They will not be obtaining a liquor license on their own. So any event that would happen there, whether it's, sort of a banquet, some kind of private party, or something that's open, or whether it's another kind of event, a live entertainment event, would have alcohol service by licensed caterers. The applicant has submitted a draft rental agreement, which has been included in your packet. According to the application, events would end Monday through Thursday, by 11 p.m., and the venue would be vacated no later than midnight. And then on Friday through Sunday, events would end by midnight, and the venue would be vacated by 1 a.m. So the application indicates that all events will be private and not open to the public. And the applicant divides the divides the events into 3 categories. The banquet uses, and of course, that's like a normal event where you have a guest list and you're renting to an individual. And then fashion shows and live entertainment. These would be by invitation only, with tickets sold to invitees to control access. I would invite the applicant to explain how that would be done in additional detail, and how the potential implications of access control would be handled if events are advertised publicly. I do want to talk a little bit about the site and circulation. So as you can see from this aerial photo, there is parking in the front of the building. This we would consider non-conforming. It can stay, it's just fine. We're not doing anything with that parking. However, if we are having up to, events with, 100 people or 99 people, there is some concern about how these spaces, might be used. The applicant did not include them in their parking calculation because they are non-conforming, but that is something I wanted to bring up. Now, the door to the facility is here on the side. As you can see from this photo, well, maybe we can't see from this photo, but there are doors on the front of the building. I think further west there's an entrance, and it looks like there's an entrance in the middle of the building. And I think now that the building has been divided as it has been, with Studio Core 3 having a dedicated access on the side, there is no access to Studio Core 3's facility from the front of the building. So all entrance to the facility would be on the side. And I would like to ask the Planning Commission to consider that. This is an existing building, and that's just the way it is. But like I said, it has been divided now in such a way, or leased out in such a way, where the applicant's space is accessible only from the side. And I would ask the Planning Commission to consider the implications of that relative to this live entertainment and banquet use, relative to meeting our zoning requirements for building elements, the intent of those requirements, as well as CPTED, or crime prevention through environmental design, requirements for safety. Okay, so this is the way the building is right now, but we're looking at adding another use that's a special land use. So that's why I bring that up. So as you can see, we've got sort of a drive here on that north side of, is that the north side of the building? South side of the building, thank you. South side of the building. And it's about 20 feet between the subject building and the neighboring property. So today, vehicles can drive through there. There is an easement that shows on the survey to Consumers Energy, which owns this small parcel at the back. And you can see there's a utility tower there with lines. And so they do have an easement easement there. Unfortunately, it does seem to be an older easement, and we weren't able to obtain the details. So I don't know if it says it must always remain clear or not. But at any rate, this drive is the access to this parcel at the rear of the lot for consumers. As you can see by the way that these vehicles are angled on the site, it appears that they use the curb cut on the south to access those spaces. I can see that there is a vehicle that appears to be facing west, so it probably came around from the north and circled through the south. There is, as you can see on this aerial photo, it's not terribly old. The site is not, there are no pavement markings, directional markings on the site for circulation. So one of the things that we have talked to the applicant and their representative about is how access will be controlled. There is some concern about this southerly curb cut, particularly because of the door being on the south side of the building. So I would ask the Planning Commission to consider that as part of the request here. Relative to parking for a occupancy of 99, 25 parking spaces are required. There are the parking spaces in the front, and as I said, the applicant didn't include those in the calculation because they are non-conforming. And also, if there is a large event, there is some concern about this southerly access, how pedestrian and vehicular access would work. The other on-site parking spaces are at the rear along the river. We do have some photographs, and you can see that they are signed. DGRI does rent some space in this building for storage, and I see that they have at least 2 parking spaces. I don't know about the remainder of the parking spaces, if they are also reserved. So I'd ask that the applicant address that. And at this time, I do not have any, I don't have anything in writing that allows the applicant to use these spaces during events. The applicant has indicated that DGRI is amenable to that, but I don't have anything in writing at this time. So there are some on-site parking spaces, and as you can see in this aerial photo, the street is striped on the west side, across the street, and then on the east side, south of the property. So there are parking spaces in the street, in the vicinity. There are also bike lanes. Relative to public transit, we don't have transit lines that go down front in this location, which is north of Leonard. But there are some transit lines within about a third to a half mile of the site. So the Planning Commission should consider whether there is adequate parking in the area for The applicant has indicated that they did explore a parking agreement with the property owner to the north. We have subsequently received a letter from them indicating that they do not have an agreement at this time, and at this point, that property owner is not amenable, is no longer amenable to a parking agreement. We have also received a letter from, let's see, from, I think it's up here, from two property owners to the north, and they are they have light industrial uses, and they have indicated their opposition to this use. So in sum, we're looking at an assembly use, private banquet facilities, as well as live entertainment events in a warehouse space of about 6,500 square feet in the TNTCC zone district. A parking waiver is also requested. Do you have any questions for me before I turn it over to the applicant?
Are there any site improvement plans that are
No.
suggested or
No, there is nothing, there are no, to my knowledge, there are no site improvements planned. We did include in the resolution of approval, if you are amenable to approval, that the site shall be striped for parking and for traffic management and circulation.
And is there just one entry? Is there any other egress or
Well,
from their property? Just that one door?
Well, they have a door in the front, up
Oh,
here,
I didn't see.
and then there's an egress here. I don't know if, I don't believe that this is intended for use during events, but I'll ask the applicant to talk about that. I should mention, as you can see, there's a large overhead door in the back, given that it is a warehouse space. And so any kind of loading or unloading can easily be done on this site. Oh, one last thing I forgot to mention, we did receive a number of letters of support for Studio Core 3 from a number of their clients. They don't seem to address this particular use specifically, but they do talk about how important Studio Core 3 is to the community, and they support whatever Studio Core 3 wishes to do. All righty. So, okay, feel free, come on up, whoever's going to speak, feel free to advance here or here, and I can also advance for you while you're talking.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Cam Green. I am a minority owner of Studio Core. With me, I brought Jason Arntz. He's a majority owner, and Rick Ross Schaefer, who is also one of our owners. I just want to address a few things that Elizabeth was stating. First, it's Studio Core, so it's not Studio Core 3, which is Studio Core. It's all good, it's Studio Core. People do that, they see the 3 all the time, it's okay. As far as the type of events that we host, we're not looking to be like a a party hall or anything like that. We host, one of the types of events that she missed was workshops. We're big on community workshops. We host a free one the last Wednesday of every month called Light Night, where we invite all creators out to use our building and our space free of charge. They get to get taught a concept, and then they get to use our building for said concept that they just learned. So that was one of the types of events that wasn't touched on. As far as our access, there is 2 doors on this side of the building. There's one towards the front here, and then there's one towards the back. So the way that we've been operating it thus far, we invite our guests to come in this back door. We rope off the beginning of the driveway and the end of the driveway, because all of our events happen in the evening, and all the businesses and districts, all the businesses in our surrounding districts over there are usually closed. We did talk to Grow, that's the company right next door, and we invited our property managers out who are in support of what we're trying to do. Our landlord owns both our space and Grow's next door over here. So when they close, we block off both sides of the driveway and allow our guests to enter and exit. It's safe, it's lit, there is no cars that come, and to make sure that we keep them safe, we usually take these 2 cars in this picture are both of ours, the owners, and we also block off the same access to those driveways so that no one can get around any blockades, because you can't move a car. So we make sure that we keep our guests safe to enter and exit. And we did speak to Elizabeth and our architects about potentially needing to paint lines that wasn't completed in the previous application that was pulled. So we are more than open to be able to do that. So it's very specified where to walk, where to stay inside of, so that no one is at risk of entering and exiting. We try to make sure that we communicate with all of our neighbors. Unbeknownst to us, they had gotten the green card that went out specifying what we were trying to do. And on the card, it said alcohol, and that kind of alarmed everyone around us that was in the letters of opposition. One of them from Wilmington Industries, we did go speak to him, and they are in support. They did not understand exactly what we were trying to do, because our primary focus, we are a media production company. So we take pictures, we are videographers. The types of events that we host are usually centered around one of our clients or something coming to us to capture some type of content. So the fashion show, we hosted a charitable fashion show in support of leukemia and lymphomic survivors that came from a client that we had taken their pictures for some of the designers, and they were like, it would be cool to do a fashion show. So we hosted a charitable fashion show. So it's those types of events that we are pushing. The alcohol only came into play because one of our members thought it would be cool to host their wedding reception there and have a themed wedding reception where you can take pictures on backdrops, and asked if we would be allowed to have wine. Once we were aware that the city, that we did not, when we first got the building, we were told it was zoned one way. Once we found out that that was not actually the case, we started taking all the proper steps through the city with Tyler and Elizabeth and such to make sure that we got zoned correctly. One of the things that was mentioned was the alcohol. So we only pulled that to be able to do alcohol in case of a wedding reception. We in no way, shape, or form are looking just to invite people in and serve drinks and sell drinks. Everything we do is private. There is a guest list. There is either tickets sold. We control the flow of who comes and who doesn't. So we know the capacity. We don't just open it up and not keep track of it. We met with Officer Wyson to go over SEPTED and some safety concerns that she had. We do have cameras around. She mentioned adding some. She also mentioned making sure that we are aware of the crowds that we're servicing. So we are actively engaged with the local police department and our local West Grand Neighborhood Association to make sure that we stay as safe and as compliant as possible. Downtown GR spaces that were specified for them, we did have an agreement. We unfortunately couldn't get it in writing prior to, but we will be able to provide evidence of that, shortly here after the meeting. But they were in support of us using their spaces during the event because they are closed at that time, so they don't mind. And up until this point, the few events that we had hosted prior to knowing that we weren't in compliance, we didn't have any issues with any neighbors. There was no police call, nothing happened that alarmed anyone. Even the neighbor that was in opposition wasn't even aware that we were open. and we had been open and had events, and he was like, oh, okay, well, that kind of put him to rest because he thought that there would be issues that just weren't present at the time. So we do have agreements with Downtown GR and working to get one in writing for Grow. What was the last thing then? I think that was it. Did I miss anything?
So was there anything else that, Elizabeth, you had mentioned that
Yeah, was it?
needs to be addressed?
Oh, last thing, I'm sorry. We do have an ADA accessible door on the other side of the building, and we also have the garage door in the back. So we do have ways to there isn't a picture on the other side of the building. It would be on this drive, and it acts as an emergency exit right outside of the bathroom. So if we did need to get someone in, they're able to roll into our venue just safe and sound.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you plan on, what you put in your application about live events and how you are going to manage live events relative to attendance.
So with our live event, with any events, like I said, we do everything online. So even if it's a free event to the community, a charitable event, you still have to register. So you still have to provide your name, phone number, email address. That one gives us a count of who was there, and two, how many people are coming into our space. So we don't go over our 99-person occupancy limit. There is no event that we host where there isn't a registration process. That just is not a thing. So we manage it on the front end like that, doing our registration. And then during the event, one or two of our owners are always present to make sure that we support whoever our client is, or if we are the partners, making sure that we are present and actively scanning and engaging what is going on in our venue. We never leave it unmanned. There's not an event that exists that we are not present. And there are 9 of us total owners. So at every event, there are at least 2. Most events, there are 5, 6, 7 of us, but at least 2. For the events that also need extra security, we hire out security teams, professional security teams, to make sure that every part of our building is covered and safe. So we do, and we keep contracts in place. So even if it's a free event, there has to be a contact individual that has signed the contract that we have engaged in and vetted, and we do our research. We check your social media pages. We see what type of other events you've had, because we never want to rent to somebody just blind unseen. We want to know, we will know who our clients are. We will know who our partners are. So we do a lot of work on the front end. We actively stay present during the event. And then afterwards, we do our absolute best to be as efficient and quick with emptying out our venue, making sure everybody gets to their car safely. And then we cover our grounds. We pick up afterwards. So we never leave an event. We don't leave our neighborhood trashed. We don't operate in that way at all.
That's great. Are you willing to put that in writing?
Absolutely.
Okay, because that's what we consider an operations management plan, and I think what I saw in the packet was a good start, but it didn't include some of the things you said, which are important to us, partly to understand how you plan to operate, but whatever we approve would stay allowed with the building. So even if you sold the building, somebody else might come in who might not be as well-intended.
Yep.
So we want to make sure we have it documented.
Yep, I just was able to update some of that yesterday, so you probably didn't see some of the updates because Officer Wyson and Elizabeth were telling me to add some more detail, so I apologize.
Okay, thank you. Were there any recommendations from the SEPTED officer that you are not implementing?
No, not all of the recommendations we are either planning to implement following this meeting, knowing all that we have to do, or we have already started implementing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your first question. That was going to be mine too, in terms of the registration being required. I know you provided the rental agreement. I just want to make sure that that's part of the rental agreement as well, that people expect there to be a registration and all of that is too. And then wanted to confirm that that big door in the back, that will remain closed during events, so there isn't a lot of noise that comes out of the building and things like that.
Absolutely, it stays closed and locked.
Thanks.
I have a question. I'm a little confused. Is this space used during the day for your business, and then you just want to maximize its use in the evening for events, or is it a vacant space?
No, we use it. Right now, we have retrofitted it to be able to be our media space. So we have sets and videography and photography equipment in there. It's not just an open warehouse that we're trying to have events out of.
Okay. And do you have any idea of how often it'll be used as an event space?
I can tell you, ideally, I would love for it to be open for events all the time. But, right now we're looking at once or twice a month. Right now is what I'm shooting for, usually on the weekends. So evenings, so like a Friday night or a Saturday evening, once or twice a month right now.
And then, I don't know if I recall from the readings or the presentation by Elizabeth, where people will park.
So there is,
Because it's 25 spaces, right, that you need?
yes, ma'am. So it's a combination of parking spaces. They park in the back here. These are being not considered, but we do park in the front here.
They're not part of the 25.
Nope. But the company next door here allow us to park in the back. That's Grow. And then they park on the streets, line in the street here, and usually up here as well, and some park down here. So it's a combination. We had an agreement with this business, but that was the gentleman who he felt that there was some confusion in what the green card said versus what we had a conversation about. So we are working to just clarify with him to see if he's okay with us still keeping an agreement to park here, but this was the other space that they would park. So we are actively working on that right now.
Is there a, excuse me.
I was just following up on that question, if that's okay. I was wondering, is there a parking agreement with Grow to the south? I don't think that was submitted.
Yes, so we're working to get that in. That was the one we don't have in writing yet, but we are working. They had to reach out to their team to make sure they could give us something in writing. But our landlords do. The same landlord owns both properties, so they didn't know that our landlords were in support of what we were trying to do, and that is part of the reason why our property management company is here, just so they know that they're in support as well. But we're working on getting it in writing right now.
Thank you.
Are there any plans for outdoor entertainment space?
No, you got some ideas? But no, not right now. We don't have anything, no. We don't have any plans for that. We want to, if we are able to get approved, have some type of welcome to the neighborhood event, but we will go through all of the necessary paperwork through the city to do so, but we don't plan on doing anything outside. With the river being there, that just is a liability I don't want to even begin to deal with, so no, sir.
Any other questions for the applicant?
I wanted to follow up on your statement about the vehicles blocking the drives. I don't think that was something that was previously discussed, and I'm a little bit concerned as to what the fire department might have to say about that, or emergency egress and such. So I think that needs a little bit more conversation before we.
We did meet with the fire department, and
Okay.
we stopped doing that after we met with them. So they were saying that the blockades were okay. So we haven't done it.
Okay.
I should have specified.
The blockades with using the vehicles was okay?
No, we use
Like
stanchions.
barricades?
Stanchions. I cannot think of the word stanchions.
Okay, I thought I heard you say that you would be using vehicles to
No,
block.
no. Sorry.
Okay.
Then-
We have in the past.
Yeah, we did our first one, and then we met with, I forgot the fire chief's name that came and walked through.
Sure.
But she had informed us to stop doing that.
Yeah,
So
okay.
we didn't do it anymore after that.
Okay, so that would not be continued.
No, ma'am.
And then there is some parking around on the east side. Presumably, if you have the blockades, vehicles would not be using that south drive. They'd be using the north drive, which is about 12 feet in width. So
Here? Is that what you were?
that's the south side. That would be blocked, I think you told me, you just
Yep,
said,
yes.
for pedestrian safety.
Yep.
So vehicles to access those parking spaces would be using that north drive, which is about 12 feet, 13 feet wide?
Yep.
Not wide enough for two-way vehicles is
Right.
my concern.
But there is, so the way that we actually flow, you can't see it in this picture, but down on the bottom of the screen here, on the other side of Grow, there's a driveway that we direct people to come in to get back here safely, so they can still park and exit this way. So we try to keep the flow to come in and around like that.
Okay, so the entrance would be on this, vehicle entrance would be on the south side of Grow, which is?
Thank you. Right here.
1250 Front Street, yep.
Yep, so we come in right here, and then they're able to park and exit over here. So we don't have cars park on this driveway at all.
Okay, so to do that, that would necessitate some shared access agreements
Yep.
formalized. Since it's under same ownership, that should be relatively, well, I'm assuming, simple to achieve. But
Yep.
that's, I think, an important distinction, because if the 1250 or the Grow building were to be sold to a different owner, I think that that's an important consideration for the Planning Commission if your vehicle parking is to be self-parked or customer parked. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
Okay. So that would be something else for, should the Planning Commission move forward with any condition of approval, that those shared parking, shared access agreements would need to be in place.
There's always even half of the south drive. So protect pedestrians, and you have a one-way on the south and a one-way on the north, all around our building. We talked about that before as well.
Oh, yeah. So
Blocking out half of ours, yeah.
the other option that we had discussed with our architect and some of the planning team was to block off half of this driveway and half of this driveway, so that people would still be able to, cars would still be able to drive in and out, and the pedestrians would be safe to enter and exit our venue. So use stanchions to block off half of this driveway, because 2 cars can fit in and out of our driveway here.
Okay.
So that was the other.
That driveway looks to be about 16 feet, so while practically I see your point that it can happen, it's not,
It's about 20 feet wide.
is it? Okay. I'm just going off an aerial, so real-world measurements are probably helpful and more accurate for sure.
It's 20 feet between the two buildings.
Okay. So a typical drive aisle is about 22 feet. So there, it does appear that there could be some, 5 to 8 feet pedestrian walk and still accommodate a one-way lane.
Any other questions at this time?
You said you were going to get into, have an agreement with Grow for parking behind their building?
Yes, ma'am.
And that looks like it's all trailers. So where would the parking be behind the building?
So this side is trailers, but you can't see it on this picture, but, here, right against the building, there are spaces lined on the back side of this building. So there are no trailers that's parked there. They're on the other side here. Those are shipping containers.
Yes. They're shipping containers.
Yep.
Sorry. And then you've got a couple of different ideas, but one is to go south of Grow and then head north and then west or along the top part of the building for cars to, is there enough room there for cars to park and get through by these containers?
Yep. So right now,
pretty tight.
there's enough. It looks tight on the aerial view, but right now, cars parked there and semi-trucks come through here
Okay.
all day for Grow, because there's a loading dock right here for them.
Okay.
So they'll come through here and then just back up. So it's more than enough space for cars to be parked here, and you still have space for cars or, like I said, semi-trucks to get through back here, if that was the option that we
Okay,
ended
that's a
up going
better
with.
view. I think the shadow maybe.
Yeah.
That's a brand new parking lot.
Thank you.
That was pretty bad in the picture.
All right. Any other questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I just want to confirm some stuff. So, the live events, you said you got 1 or 2 a month, and that's what you're shooting for. right?
But that's where we're at now.
That's where we're
shooting for every weekend.
You're shooting for every weekend, but for right now, you're doing 1 or 2 events, live events a month.
Yeah.
Averaging how many people?
We've had about between 70 and 80. Once we found out that 99 was our limit, we capped it. But we haven't gone over 85, I think was our most that we had. That's including the workers.
Got you. But the primary business is the actual studio space, the content development space.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Okay. For these live events that you have had, where do those folks park now?
The same parking plan that we're going through now, that's where they already park. The street or in the backside of the building there. So
okay, so this plan, the only difference between what you're doing now and what you're trying to do is just get confirmation and or I guess written in stone parking.
Yep.
The ability to not sell alcohol, but use alcohol in the building for these live events that are catered by a catering services, but not you.
Yes, sir.
A licensed catering service.
Yes, sir.
And parking.
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay.
All right, thank you. We'll open up the public hearing for anyone who would like to come up and address the commission about this case. Make your way up to the microphone. State your name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to share your thoughts with us.
My name's Renee Wozniak. I'm from West Michigan Credit Union, 1319 front, so across the street, kitty corner. Our concern was parking. I think it's been addressed. I think 25 spaces seems a bit small if there are truly 99 people there. When the bike lanes went in and the road was shut down to parking on one side of the street, whether it's the east or the west side, we found that parking was very limited in that area. So our concern with this was not the alcohol. We were okay with all of that. It was just the parking. And if an event started at noon on a Friday, how that would not just affect us, but there's a business to the north of us that has a very, very busy retail function that parks in the street. So that street parking is very limited in that area. So that was our only concern, is just to make sure that parking becomes available for those that are there for their working and for their events. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, then we'll close the public hearing.
I would just like to note, in addition to the packet, letters in the packet, the Planning Department did receive just a few minutes ago, a letter from the West Grand Neighborhood Organization. So for the record, Ms. Annette Vandenberg, the executive director, stated that and I'll paraphrase, that the board has no opposition at the moment to the venue, but there hasn't been adequate time to respond to the request, but this has the potential to be a great project for the west side. As alcohol service is to be used, there's a safety element that needs to be addressed. Acknowledging that there has been one business owner that reached out that doesn't support the request. Emphasis on the need for an adequate parking plan. Acknowledges that the area is slated to be more of a mixed use in the future. And is this appropriate for the area? Discussing capacity of 99, and that doesn't include vendors or their employees. With more mixed-use development south of Leonard, there will be more residential in the area. There's already one residential apartment building, and they were required to provide parking for their own development, noting that the Dash and Rapid Transits have stops here. And staff have had a brief opportunity, meaning their staff, to discuss with Mr. Green about crime prevention through environmental design. The applicant's still working on the community engagement and benefits agreement. Active building use can help deter crime. However, it also attracts unwanted behaviors if appropriate mitigation efforts are not made. The neighborhood has experienced these sorts of challenges near venues that were grandfathered in prior to SEPTED adoption. West Grand Neighborhood Organization understands that there will be various types of uses and activities at this new venue.
If I'm if I may say something really quick. We did meet with West Grand, and Annette has specified that the biggest reason for a letter of no opposition is that we weren't able to go before their board prior to our meeting, but West Grand will be on site next Monday to see our venue. They haven't been on site yet, but we have had an active conversation, and they are excited about the possibilities. So that was the reason why they wrote the letter of no opposition.
Can I ask him a question real quick, since you're there? When you put out notices for your live events, this is, Studio Core putting out those notices in marketing, I would assume, right?
Yep.
So in the marketing, do you tell people where to park, if they can park, how much parking there is, ways to get there, get home?
Yep, so we specify, we even started including, prior to knowing that we had to stop doing events, we included like a picture of our grounds and highlighted where to park, where to enter, where to exit, and then we're all there. So we come outside and help shuttle people where they're supposed to go or tell them where to park and things like that. So we absolutely included that.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. I had one other question about hours of operation for the events. So that you said evenings and weekends.
Yes, sir.
So would you be amenable to a condition that specified those hours of operation?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay.
My only question, if there was anything that was interested before, would we be able to send out notices to the neighborhood and let them know? Is that something that would be open? If we need to specify to certain hours, we're more than happy to do that.
Okay.
Just wondering if that could be something.
Is your concern that there could be events during weekday, daytime hours when industrial operations are,
And retail.
and retail?
Yes.
So that could be a condition of approval that live entertainment banquet hall events cannot start on weekdays prior to 6 p.m.
Oh, yeah, we're more than happy to do that. I was more concerned about our workshops. So we support entrepreneurship and stuff like that, and that stuff happens during the day sometimes.
Yeah, I think the workshops are not the issue. That would be a permitted use by the zoning. It's more of the banquet hall events with the alcohol service.
Understood.
Because everyone shows up, everyone leaves, and
Okay. Yeah, that's no problem at all.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll turn to the commission for deliberation.
Am I too late to speak? I'm sorry.
I
thought it opened back up.
We did close the public hearing, but are you on behalf of?
I'm the property manager.
Okay, please.
Thank you. My name's Lori Miller. I'm the property manager. I manage both of those properties, and on behalf of the landlord, I would like to support their use. As far as the parking, last year we were looking into parking striping, and because we ended up replacing the parking lot at 1250, we didn't get to the striping over in this building, and I believe we can get 2 rows in here and possibly some angled against the building, so I think there's going to be plenty back there. The other thing is we've had issues with homeless back there. If they're having events, that's less likely to happen. I mean, they've camped out there, they've set fires out there, and with their security and stuff, I guess I would feel more comfortable if they're having events, and that would probably happen less often. So we're in support.
thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioners.
I think this is a unique added use of the space. It sounds to me, maybe I'm wrong, that it has a strong tie with the work that they do on a daily basis, which then lends itself to a background for special events. Am I correct? My daughter got married in an old warehouse that was converted to a photography studio some years ago, and I was a bit aghast, but it was one of the most beautiful. And so I liked the way during the day it was a photography studio, and at night it was able to be used for entertainment, and then you get much more usage out of the building. And so that was helpful for me to clarify that point, that it has some relationship to you. I think it's, I think it's a nice way to increase the usage and vitality, traffic in the area that is helpful when you talk about homeless issues, and I know what those can cause problems, but the more activity in the evening will, I hope, increase safety in the neighborhood as well. So, I think, pending some of the things that they still have outstanding being resolved, I think it's a good use of the building.
Yeah, I agree. I admit when I was going through the packet, I was a little skeptical, but hearing the operations plan and making sure that that's conditioned in here to have all that we've heard in the testimony in that operations plan, I am also in support. I think, as has been mentioned, this area is in transition, and this is a unique use, and I think it's appropriate, and I do think the plans that they've talked about in terms of how they're dealing with parking and district parking, and their events not conflicting with hours of operation of the other businesses in the area, I think I'm comfortable with the parking waiver as well.
Just wanted to tack onto that. I agree that the use is definitely unique. We need more like this, digital content creation. That's the thing, right? So businesses in the neighborhood, especially in West Michigan, who are providing the kind of services where you can get backdrops, where you can get settings and sets, and do that. It's very unique. If I could do this in my basement, I would. But with that, parking is going to be hectic. We all know that. But, we got a lot of people going in at one time, and they're all leaving at the same time. I'm a content creator. I've never been to a studio space alone. So that, at least for me, helps that people will be carpooling to this place whenever there's a live event. People will be carpooling to this place whenever there's something huge going on. They will not be driving their cars alone, or they'll be Ubering, or whatever the case may be. Because of the use, I think you got a much younger crowd going in, which is also lends well to the carpooling, taking the bus, going by bike, things of that sort. So I'm okay with the parking waiver, but I would like to see those parking, as a property manager had mentioned, those parking markers go in and kind of get that situated. I'm a little worried about the parking behind the other building, right where those storage, those containers are, just because the applicant said that there are trucks that go through there. I don't want anyone getting run over by a truck. But besides that, I think this is a good use, this is a good plan, and I'm in favor.
Yeah, I think I'm generally supportive of it. I think a couple things have come up. I think the operational explanation was good, and I would agree with previous comments that when I first read through the packet, it felt light, and so I would like to see, I think it can be done at staff level, but see a more robust operational plan put in place and put in writing. And parking agreements, I think, would be wise to have, along with potentially like a traffic management plan, as I don't think it'd be appropriate to route cars down the same driveway that people are exiting and entering the building on before or after events. It just doesn't feel, if you're coming out of an event, you're just kind of walking out the door. You might be talking with your friends about the event. You're not paying attention, maybe. It just feels narrow to me. So I'd rather see that not be used for traffic. And I think the only other, potentially in the operational management plan, the style of events, and to Commissioner Lawrence's description, I think is fantastic. Maybe worry is too strong a word, but what I think it could turn into without any additional approvals is like just another intersection. And I don't know that would be appropriate here. So I don't know how we manage that, or, keep those events more, smaller, more oriented towards the arts potentially. But, at this point, it feels like I think if I understand correctly, if I had a band, I could just rent it and then sell 99 tickets to it and perform there. And I don't know that having that 5 days a week is necessarily a great thing. I don't know, but maybe it'd be fine. I'm not overly concerned about parking because I think there is a lot of on-street parking. People can walk, a block or so to get parking and stuff. So overall, I'm okay with it as long as some of those details can be kind of further fleshed through.
I'm ready to make a motion
I guess I wouldn't mind a little bit more discussion on your comments, Commissioner Yonker, because it's very difficult to tie a banquet use to the daytime operations of the business. And
Yep.
so
Yep, I understand that. I think honestly, if the operations plan can just be added onto, I mean, it's very skeletal the way it is in our packet today. So if it could be added onto with what the gentleman spoke through about a number of different folks who are invested in the facility being there, how traffic is going to be, monitored, I don't have then I think it's fine.
Okay, so like a condition such as that an operations management plan be revised per testimony and submitted to the planning director for review and approval.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
No, it's my specialty. The question was, can you reduce the occupancy below 99? I think that yes, I think we'd need some rationale or basis for reducing occupancy.
I guess to piggyback off that, the 99 occupancy is total, so that does include staff and all of that, correct?
I would agree with that.
Okay,
yes.
so as long as that's part of the management plan and clear in the rental agreement that you can't have more tickets sold than whatever that threshold is, so that everybody is within the 99, I would be comfortable with that.
All right, great. Now therefore it be resolved that the Planning Commission approves the special land use and site plan review request of Studio Core LLC Cameron Green to establish a rental hall and live entertainment venue with alcohol service in an existing building and a parking waiver at 1300 Front Avenue Northwest for the following reasons. The proposed use will be consistent with the purpose and intent of the master plan and zoning ordinance, including the zone district, because the proposed use will improve the visual appeal and walkability of the business district and provide a mix of uses in a transitioning area. The proposed use will meet the site plan review standards of section 5.12.08.e because the safe, convenient, and well-defined vehicular, bicycle, and pedestrian circulation within and to and from the site will be provided, and all elements of the site design are harmoniously and efficiently organized in relation to the site and type of lot, character of the neighborhood and adjoining property, and the type, size, and proportions of the buildings. The proposed uses will be compatible, harmonious, and appropriate with the character and uses of the neighborhood because the uses will be consistent with the desired mixed-use character of this area, and the proposed use will add a unique business to the district and complement existing uses. Potentially adverse effects arising from the proposed use will be minimized through the provision of adequate neighborhood parking and appropriate placement of buildings and entrances. The proposed uses will not be detrimental, hazardous, or disturbing to the existing or future uses or to the public welfare by reason of excessive traffic, noise, and glare, because entertainment will be fully contained indoors. Adequate street parking is available to support the use. The proposed use will not adversely affect the walkability of the neighborhood, impair pedestrian circulation patterns, disrupt the continuity of the urban street wall, or otherwise hinder the creation of a pedestrian-oriented environment, because use of the building as proposed could bring vitality to this area of the neighborhood, creating a character conducive to a pedestrian-oriented environment. The proposed use will not be detrimental to the financial stability and economic welfare of the city because the uses are not anticipated to result in nuisances that require excessive code enforcement actions given the proposed scale, hours, and location. And the conditions of the special land use approval will limit the nuisances that require police or code enforcement actions. Given the character, location, development trends, and other aspects of the neighborhood, it is demonstrated that the area is underserved by the proposed use, and that the proposed location for alcohol sales will demonstrably be an asset to the neighborhood, because as proposed, the uses will be unique as compared to existing uses in the neighborhood. The use or change in use as constructed and operated by the applicant is compatible with the neighborhood because the operator or their designee will be on premises during events. Occupancy of the space will primarily be in the evenings and on weekends when area traffic and parking demands are at a minimum. And the proposed use will attract only invited guests for planned events rather than events open to the general public. The use as proposed to be operated by the applicant will minimize or eliminate negative secondary effects on the neighborhood because the applicant has procedures prepared so that the use will be operated in a manner that has the potential to minimize or eliminate negative secondary effects on the neighborhood. Be it further resolved that the following conditions of approval shall apply to this project. Standard condition set A approvals be pulled up on the screen momentarily, and I'll read them. That the application and plans submitted by the applicant and signed, dated, and stamped by the planning director shall constitute the approved plans except if plan elements do not meet ordinance requirements and/or as amended in this resolution. That the use shall operate according to the application and per testimony as recorded in the Planning Commission minutes. That this approval does not include any proposed signs or any future signs shall be subject to the requirements of Article 15 of the ordinance and permits received prior to installation. That a land use development services, LUDS permit, building permit, and all other required permits be obtained from the City of Grand Rapids prior to construction, demolition, or operation. That any expansion of the approved special land use requires an additional special land use review and approval by the Planning Commission. That the proposed use will comply with all other applicable city ordinances and policies and all state laws. That this approval shall take effect 16 calendar days after the date of the Planning Commission's decision. Number 2, that a building permit shall be obtained for the change of use and any alterations prior to occupancy of the space. That legal parking spaces for guests shall be striped. That directional pavement markings shall be painted for pedestrian and vehicular circulation. That the operator and/or designee shall be on the premises during all functions and events. That all alcohol consumed on the premises must be dispensed by a licensed alcohol caterer. That doors and windows shall remain closed during events. That Monday through Thursday events shall cease by 11 p.m. and the facility vacated by 12 a.m. And after, okay, you're going to cover that one?
Keep going.
Okay. That, I had a note there too. That Friday through Saturday events shall cease by midnight and the facility vacated by 1 a.m. the following day. That the event space may accommodate up to 99 individuals, subject to occupancy determination by the city's building official and applicable building and fire codes. That the operator or their designee shall be on the premises during all events. That a copy of the facility rental agreement shall be provided. That there shall be no live entertainment outdoors. That an indoor events license shall be obtained from the office of the city clerk prior to operation.
I think you can strike number 11, which was redundant of 5. Okay, that's okay.
Strike number 11.
So 4 additional for your consideration. That banquet and other assembly events with live entertainment and/or alcohol may not begin before 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. 2, that a traffic management and circulation plan be submitted for review and approval by the city's traffic engineer prior to occupancy. that a shared access agreement with 1250 Front Avenue Northwest, property to the south, be developed to facilitate the vehicular circulation plan described per testimony, that the operation management plan be revised per testimony and submitted to the planning director for review and approval.
That's good.
Second.
We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Our next case for consideration is 1503 Plainfield Northeast. This is in the Creston Neighborhood Business District corridor. It's in the TN TBA Traditional Neighborhood Traditional Business Area Zone District. You can see the subject property is on the northwest corner of the intersection of Plainfield and Quimby. Some of the surrounding area you can't quite see on the map. The Saugatuck Brewing Company is directly across Plainfield to the east, and at the southeast corner of Plainfield and Quimby is a new apartment building that is under construction today. The request is for a new cocktail lounge with live entertainment, outdoor seating, and a parking waiver is also requested. The subject property is a two-story commercial building, approximately 1,800 square feet in area. The ground floor has a large storefront. It is currently divided into two units. The northernmost unit is a barber shop that is owned and operated by the owner of this property, who is also the applicant for the new cocktail lounge. The southernmost unit is the area where the cocktail lounge will be located. There are 3 doors into these 2 suites, one for the barber shop and 2 doors into the southerly unit into where the new cocktail lounge will be located. I'll talk about that when I pull up the site plan or the floor plan. Currently, this ground floor unit has been a number of different uses over the years. It's been a cafe. It's been right now, I think it's it was most recently a lash boutique. The lash boutique has moved onto the second floor, and it's been retail use as well. On this image, you can see all 3 doors. For the site changes that are proposed with this plan, the entrance door to the cocktail lounge that is closest to the existing barbershop entrance will be removed, and the wall will be restored to match the existing walls of the building. So there will end up being 2 entrances, one to the barbershop, one to the cocktail lounge at the corner here. And if you look at the floor plan, here is an image where you can see both the barber shop and the cocktail lounge. The internal wall dividing these 2 units will be removed so that both uses will be open to one another. So the intent is for a hybrid space, and I'll let the applicant add some more detail on that. But the idea is that there will be some synergy between the uses during overlapping business hours. Clients of the barbershop could go into the lounge or vice versa, and drinks could be had by clients and patrons of both the barbershop and the lounge. The applicant has requested that alcohol service be allowed in the barbershop by clients when visiting for services, even outside of the proposed cocktail lounge hours. So both businesses would continue to operate separately, but there will be some overlap. On this plan, regarding the outdoor seating on the west side of the building, there is included potential for the bar to extend into outside of the building through a window into the public right-of-way. There is no survey. We're not sure exactly where the property line is. I'm guessing it's close to the building. Anything in the public right-of-way would require an encroachment permit and review and approval from the engineering department. Additional table is proposed also on the south side of the building on Quimby Street. What is not shown on the plan is on that side of the building, there is a GR Mobile micro-mobility parking area, a fire hydrant, and a utility pole. One of the conditions of the encroachment permit for outdoor seating is there needs to be maintained a minimum of 6 feet of pedestrian right-of-way between the seating area and the street. And it does not appear that the proposed improvements on that building or the outdoor seating will meet that requirement. So we're asking the Planning Commission to consider the outdoor use at this location and the final location of where the outdoor seating will be subject to engineering review and approval. Regarding details of the use, the barbershop is not proposed to change, aside from the wall being demised between the units. It is 559 square feet in area, has 5 stations. The hours of operation are typical for a barbershop, and that use is not proposed to change, except for the option of barbershop clients to have a drink when they come in for services. The cocktail lounge is proposed to close by 10 p.m. Wednesday through Thursday, 11 p.m. Friday through Saturday, and no, it will not be open on Sunday. The lounge area is approximately 544 square feet and has a seating occupancy of 37. The live entertainment that is requested will be a DJ located just behind the bar here. The application stated it is intended to provide ambient music for the cocktail lounge. No live band performances are proposed. The applicant has submitted an operations management plan that's in your packet and will also be pursuing a SID license for the alcohol. They've been waiting for Planning Commission approval before moving forward with their alcohol license. There are a number of other uses in the area with hours of operation that sell alcohol, that hours of operation similar to this request, and that is in your packet as well. And then the last part of this request is for the waiver for parking. As you can see, there is no parking available on site. The barber shop is existing, so I did not include the requirement for that parking in this waiver request. And then when a use changes from one use to a different use, we take into account the difference in the parking need when reviewing a request. Based on the previous uses, a range between 2 and 10 spaces were required. A bar with this occupancy requires 13 parking spaces. So we can say that there's a parking deficit between 3 and 11 spaces. In either case, the Planning Commission may waive parking based on the availability of parking in the area. There's metered parking both on Plainfield and Quimby, and just southwest, just outside this image, southwest of the subject property, less than 300 feet away, is a district city-owned parking lot with about 93 spaces. The rapid bus route 11 also runs up and down Plainfield with stops in the vicinity. So based on this, the Planning Commission may consider the appropriateness of the request to waive the parking requirement. The applicant has been in communication with the neighborhood businesses, the Creston Neighborhood Association, and I'll let them provide some additional detail about their outreach. And we have received letters of support from neighboring business owners, property owner, and the Creston Neighborhood Association. So in sum, we ask that you consider the appropriateness of establishing a new cocktail lounge at this location, combined with the barbershop use that's unique. It's a different request, and the request to waive the parking that is required. Do you have any questions for me?
Nope, thank you, Laura. We'll invite the applicant up.
Thank you. Awesome. Good afternoon. My name is Tommy Rodriguez. I'm the owner of the Henchman House Barbershop, Cuts and Shave, with the hopes of changing that to a Henchman House Barbershop, Cuts and Cocktails. It's always been a dream of mine to integrate both my passions of crafting cocktails as well as crafting haircuts into the same vicinity, ultimately. After taking purchase of the building roughly a year and a half ago from our former landlord, Barry Brown, he allowed us the opportunity to of course, purchase the building, thus allowing for this potential dream of mine to come to play. Ultimately, I've been in the cocktail game as well as the bar game for about 15 years before transitioning out of that into the barbershop business. We had the intention of trying to create this opportunity sooner, but once the landlord allowed us to buy the building, we understood the usage of using the SID as to our advantage in regards to the space itself. Ultimately, our plan seems to be pretty straightforward as from what you read so far. One thing you don't see in there that we have is our consultant. We've got a great consultant out of Detroit who's worked with several of the nation's best bars and groups throughout the nation, and looking really forward to working with him in regards to our operational plan and getting this whole operation in general set up. But I was curious if you guys had any questions for me today in regards to, or if you had anything to add by chance. This is my wife, Darlene. I'm sorry. She's also very much involved in this project as well.
Just the operational hours, we were wanting to open earlier.
Correct. Yeah, our operational hours were somewhat of a misprint here, if you'll noticed. Wednesday through Thursday, we have the hours at 5 to 10 p.m., Friday through Saturday, 5 to 11 p.m. Ultimately, our goal is to have the option of doing alcohol service both during the daytime to our clients, which ultimately would change the hours of the lounge. So we're hoping to push more for an 8 a.m. to an 11 p.m. closing time for those days. These are the current hours we plan on starting with as we grow and learn more about our operation, and we kind of miswrote the hours actually on there as well.
So, understood. Could you just repeat what's the full range of what you might eventually want to do?
8 a.m.
It'd be 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. Monday through Saturday.
For both sides.
Correct, for both sides, that is, to operate.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Any questions for the applicant at this time?
What are is that housing on the upper stories? No?
No, it's a full commercial building. I have one tenant upstairs as well as my office.
Oh, okay, thank you.
There's 4 units in the building in total.
Got it.
Just wanted to clarify something. The packet that we're looking at says live entertainment, but you just mentioned that there is no live entertainment, that there's a DJ.
Yes, from the writings in which we had to go with, live entertainment seems to be the description we had to use.
Okay.
The DJ is going to be very much a person playing records. It's not going to be someone scratching in with a microphone. It's going to be very low.
I was hoping for that.
Ambient feeling. Well, on the weekends, we hope to have a little bit more of an energy, of course, but at the end of the day, it is supposed to be more relaxed.
It's not like a nightclub.
Yeah.
It makes sense, right? You don't want a nightclub next to the barber shop.
Certainly.
Haircuts are more important. Outdoor seating, what about that?
So, we're working with what you guys allow us. At the end of the day, we do know that the right-of-way is an issue, of course. Currently, the area just south of the building here, you can kind of see in this section here, there is the mobile street parking. Our goal is to speak with the city and ask them if it's possible to move this mobile street parking, even as simple as across the street where there's lots of room for it. We should also add about 100 yards south of us, there's another mobile street parking there. So whether there's another one needed to be across the street is certainly up to the city, but we would request for that to be removed.
Okay. Ideally, how many seats would you want outside for outdoor seating?
Depending on what space we can actually work with, I would say no more than 10.
Got you.
Yeah, I think with the space we have there, we'd be limited as it is, but I think 10 is roughly the number we're looking at, with 4 sitting at the bar and approximately 6 sitting out toward the outside toward the road curve there.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So staying on the outdoor seating for just a minute, I just wanted to clarify that typically outdoor seating for this type of use, providing it closes at 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday and 11 p.m. Friday, Saturday, which is the ordinance, that can typically be handled administratively. But because this was coming before you, we wanted to make sure you had the full scope or package of what your consideration or what the proposed use would be. So if you're comfortable with outdoor seating generally, again, the ordinance would suggest earlier hours than I think was stated by an hour on weekdays. We can work with the applicant to develop like a floor plan or outdoor seating plan that meets the needs of the city and hopefully provides them with as much outdoor seating as possible. So if you were thinking to allow it beyond the 10 p.m. and 11 p.m., I'd like a little bit of discussion on that, please.
Before discussion, any further questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you. Now we can talk about, public hearing. Yep, sorry. Open up the public hearing for anyone who would like to comment on this case. Please state your name for the record, and you'll have up to 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, folks. I'm Greg Hampshire. I am the Executive Director for the Creston Neighborhood Association and a nearby resident of the proposed special land use. At CNA, we're committed to the redevelopment of our historic business district and recognize the applicants as leaders in this capacity. Henchman House is a multi-award winning barbershop. We see them as one of the key businesses at the front line of this revitalization of Creston and bringing new folks in to discover our North End community. We're hopeful that this investment and expansion will attract more and keep them longer on Plainfield. CNA supports the use, and as a neighbor, I support the requested land use, outdoor use, and reduction in parking giving the nearby West Creston lot. I would also support extending their hours from 8 a.m. to midnight. Thank you.
My name is Dale Hotelling. I'm on the Land Use Committee for Creston Neighborhood Association. I'm a longtime customer of Tommy's. Doesn't he do a nice job? I'm not a drinker, but I support what he's trying to do because I know there are others who are going to enjoy that space. Tommy's been talking to me about it for all the time he's been thinking about this process, even before he had the ownership of the building. And it's just an exciting thing to see a creative entrepreneurial spirit in the community and what they're looking at doing. They've already improved that building with what they've done with the barber shop. And quite frankly, the plan sounds great. I think it would be a miss to not approve it. Okay. Oh, I'm also on the steering committee for the master plan. So and I think it fits well with that, as well as our ASP for the Creston neighborhood.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, we'll close the public comment period. Invite the applicant up for anything you'd like to respond to that you heard, if any.
Well, I mean, the neighborhood's definitely spoken. It definitely appreciates what we've created, and we have every intention of just going on with that same type of creation. I'm a craftsman, I'm an artist. I really want to bring these two crafts together in the same place, and I think Crescent's definitely the place to do it. Thank you.
All right, then we'll turn to deliberation.
I mean, I think this is, a great project. I, for one, would love to have like a glass of wine while I'm getting my hair cut. I think that sounds amazing. As far as the hours go, we have some options here. I guess maybe I'll address the parking first. I'm completely in favor of the waiver here. As has been mentioned, there's adequate district parking and also really good transit and micromobility options here. And it's becoming more and more a walking community as well. So I have no issue with that. For the hours, I guess I was interested in folks' thoughts. I had tentatively written down 10 p.m. for Sunday through Thursday, and then it says 11 p.m. Friday and Saturday. I wanted to get people's thoughts about whether Friday and Saturday midnight is appropriate, whether that is only indoors or whether we're creating hours for indoor and outdoor seating. So I guess wanted some discussion about that.
I think the hours, I'd like to know what hours are for outdoor seating surrounding this area. I've raised my kids in the Crescent neighborhood area, and to me, this site, and it's turned over a lot, that corner lot, is like the core intersection of the business district. And the more activity you can have there, the more it is going to be that kind of center gathering place that then connects outside of it. So I do hope that they can work on getting the things moved around so that they can have outdoor seating there. And whether it's 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, or 12 o'clock, I guess, isn't that, is that determined by us, or that's determined by the rules of outdoor seating?
So the rules of outdoor seating are more specific in the ordinance to be 10 p.m. Monday through Thursday and 11 p.m. Friday, Saturday.
Okay.
If the Planning Commission is wishing to deviate to later, that is within your authority, but it's a conversation point to be had. Indoor hours, I believe, was submitted, I'm going to phone a friend here in case I say it wrong. The application was submitted, published, and presented to the Crescent Neighborhood Association, which stated 11 p.m. is the latest time. And so in fairness to the engagement that was done, it's a little difficult to suggest that later hours are appropriate because at this time, because individuals that saw that packet or that participated in the Crescent Neighborhood Association seem to be in support of the 11 p.m. We don't have any way of knowing whether that same support would have been extended if the business wished to operate later. So that gives me pause. Am I missing anything? Okay, that gives me pause, but that certainly doesn't preclude them from circling back with their neighbors, maybe after there's some, demonstrated commitment to abiding by the operational commitments that have been made, which I have no doubt, but it wouldn't preclude them from coming back, asking them for later hours in the future. And we can work with them on a streamlined application process since, we've just gone through this here. But I'm a little bit reluctant to suggest that it would be appropriate for the Planning Commission to deviate from the application, what was published and communicated to the neighborhood. So sorry to be the negative Nelly on that. I just wanted to be transparent for what we've done.
Mm-hmm. Any other more discussion? No?
I would, if we're ready.
I have a motion if we're ready, but I was
I do want to add that it's exciting to see these combinations down the street, the flower shop and wine shop together, the predecessor to this one. I think it just adds to the vitality and uniqueness of our neighborhood, particularly in our neighborhoods, of offering opportunities to mingle and community to come together in different ways. So I am in support of the proposal.
All right, any further discussion? Otherwise, Commissioner Joseph has a motion.
All right, let's do it. Make sure I'm on the right one. Now therefore be it resolved that the Planning Commission approves the special land use and site plan review request of Henchman House LLC, Thomas Rodriguez, to establish a new cocktail lounge with live entertainment and outdoor seating and for alcohol service in the existing barber shop and for a parking waiver at 1503 Plainfield Avenue Northeast for the following reasons. The proposed use will be consistent with the purpose and intent of the master plan and zoning ordinance, including the zone district, because the proposed use will support the vitality of the local economy by encouraging investment, diversifying the economic base, and expanding employment opportunities, and support development of a compact, walkable commercial center that provides a mix of uses located on a transit route. The proposed use will meet the site plan review standards of Section 5.12.8.e because any outdoor seating area to be established will meet engineering standards to maintain a 6-foot clear area for pedestrians on the sidewalk right-of-way. The proposed use will be compatible, harmonious, and appropriate with the character and uses of the neighborhood, adjacent properties, and the natural environment because the proposed use is intended to function synergistically with and support the existing barber shop, and the proposed use will support the desired mixed-use character of the neighborhood. Potentially adverse effects arising from the proposed use will be minimized because adequate street parking and public parking lots are available in the vicinity. The proposed use will not be detrimental, hazardous, or disturbing to existing or future uses or to the public welfare because hours of operation are similar to other establishments in the area, and the live entertainment will consist of a DJ to provide ambiance and curated music for the lounge. The proposed use will not adversely affect the walkability of the neighborhood, impair pedestrian circulation patterns, disrupt the continuity of the urban street wall, or otherwise hinder the creation of a pedestrian-oriented environment because the use is unique compared to other businesses in the area, which supports a walkable environment, because of limited parking available, clients will be encouraged to walk or rely on other modes of transportation, which are readily available in the neighborhood. The proposed use will not be detrimental to the financial stability or economic welfare of the city because the use is not anticipated to result in nuisances that require excessive code enforcement actions given the proposed scale, hours, and location. The proposed use will comply with all the other applicable city ordinances and policies and all applicable state laws. Given the character, location, development trends, and other aspects of the neighborhood, the proposed location for alcohol sales will demonstrably be an asset to the neighborhood because as proposed, the use will be unique compared to existing uses in the neighborhood. The use or change in use as constructed and operated by the applicant is compatible with the neighborhood because the use is intended to complement existing businesses in the vicinity, and based on an occupancy of 37, the scale of operation will inherently limit the impact of the use. The use as proposed will be operated by the applicant The use as proposed to be operated by the applicant will minimize or eliminate negative secondary effects on the neighborhood because the use is relatively small in scale and the hours will be limited. An adequate operations management plan and training will be in place. Be it further resolved that the following conditions of approval shall apply to this project. Standard conditions to A, approvals, which is on the screen, that minimum window transparency shall be maintained commensurate with zoning ordinance requirements of section 5.2.14, that accessory to the barbershop use, alcohol may be served to clients while visiting for services during typical hours of operation pursuant to the application and testimony, that the ground floor cocktail lounge with an occupancy of 37 people shall operate no later than 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday and 11 p.m. Friday and Saturday, that live entertainment shall be offered accessory to the cocktail lounge as described, take place indoors, occur no later than the hours of operation, and that there shall be no ticket sales for any live entertainment events, and doors and windows shall remain closed when indoor music and entertainment occurs. An annual encroachment permit shall be obtained for the awnings, outdoor seating, and any element projecting into the public right-of-way.
Support.
We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. The motion passes.
So, okay. The next item on the agenda is 2135 East Beltline Avenue Northeast. This is the first of two requests for veterinary offices by the same applicant. This one's in the Celebration Development at the East Beltline in Knapp. And just to clarify, the entire planned redevelopment district is, now I've forgotten how many acres, but it's multiple acres. But the site that we are talking about is one of the parcels within that development. It's all zoned planned redevelopment district, and it is subject to the original PRD ordinance, as well as a number of amendments. So there was an amendment not too long ago that was in 2022. The City Commission adopted an ordinance to allow an urgent care on the site here that is vacant. There used to be a Chili's restaurant here that was demolished, and it was redeveloped with one of the two proposed buildings. This southerly building contains a Starbucks, and I believe it is still a vacant storefront, which we hope will be filled soon. And the building to the north was to be an urgent care. It was that use that needed an amendment to the planned redevelopment district. The urgent care is no longer being proposed, and the applicant is now proposing a veterinary clinic, which requires special land use approval in this and every other zone district in the city that would allow this use. So as you can see, half of the site has already been constructed. All the parking is already complete, and just the building site is left to be constructed. For a new building, as shown on this site plan, it's about 4,300 square feet, and it's to operate as your typical veterinary outpatient clinic. There will be no animal boarding other than associated with care for recovering patients. All activities will be conducted within the building. There'll be no outside uses, kennel or any other kind of recovery area outside. Hours of operation are 7:30 to 7 p.m. approximately, 7:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. And the clinic will employ approximately 7 to 10 people. Now, the site has already been constructed, and what is being proposed here is a building that is substantially the same as the building that was previously approved. I neglected to include that in the packet, but down here at the lower left is what was previously approved. The building has lots of transparency. There are some spandrel glass windows on the front as approved. As proposed now, there is still some spandrel glass, but it is less than what was previously approved. And I don't see any spandrel glass on any of the other sides. Okay, so in sum, the transparency is slightly increasing, and the materials are substantially the same as what was previously approved. Parking, vet clinics require fewer parking spaces than the urgent care or a medical office use. Vet clinics require 3 spaces per 1,000. The approved urgent care, 6 spaces per 1,000 square feet. The site was already constructed. We're slightly overparked. So, but, you know, I guess in this case, that would require removal of parking spaces if the Planning Commission found that to be necessary. I would like to point out that parking within this development is shared among uses, so anyone coming to any business within Celebration could park anywhere on this site. So I would suggest that the parking would not go to waste. So that is what I have to say about the veterinary clinic. Secondarily, the applicant, let me just go forward with a couple of renderings here. You can see the building as proposed. And you might also notice a ground sign in these renderings. This ground sign is being proposed as an amendment to the plan signed program for Celebration. There were amendments to the plan sign program for the 2 buildings that are shown in this rendering here. So that was all approved. At the time all the wall signs were approved, the applicant did also request the sign that is shown on this rendering. It's a 5-foot tall, 30 square foot sign. And at the time that it was requested, the Planning Commission did not approve that ground sign. Because over a year has passed, the applicant is able to apply again, and they are again requesting that ground sign. The staff report does contain some comparison of what is generally allowed in the planned sign program for ground signs, as well as in the East Beltline Overlay District. So I'll be happy to answer any questions about the sign or the veterinary clinic, if you have any, or I can turn it over to the applicant to provide some additional background.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Feel free to advance, or I can just follow along.
Okay.
As you're speaking.
Hello, my name is Jordan Chapman. I'm with Allrig USA. We're the property owner for this site. Our office is located at 30200 Telegraph Road, Bingham Farms, Michigan. I appreciate you guys having me. It's good to see you guys again. It's been a couple of years, I think, since we initially brought this project forth before you guys. One of the items I did want to clarify, over, I guess, the last few years when we initially proposed the project, we had a signed lease with WellNow Urgent Care. They were the initial user that we got approved, and I think Elizabeth showed some of the elevations that you had seen. Over the course of time, I think probably coming out of COVID, I think the doctor in a box concepts kind of evolved. They've elected to not go forward with their lease. And they fall underneath the Aspen Dental parent company, so they've elected to try to pursue one of their other brands, which happens to be a veterinary concept. So I just think it's important to kind of share the context behind pivoting from one user to another. But it is nice to still be able to have the opportunity to try to work with the same parent company. I know Eric has a few things to share, I think, as it pertains to the Plan Sign program. I know these are kind of two applications piggyback onto one agenda item, but if there's no further questions on, I guess, the special land use itself, we can jump into maybe some of the more context with the plan sign program. So, yeah. So we have some material that I think we'd like to pass out that's supplemental to the application that we filled out and the Exhibit A that was a part of that.
If you want to pass it out, feel free.
Is that fine?
I can do that too. I was going to say I could set it here if it'll show over there.
It won't.
Oh. Okay. My name is Eric Stark. I'm an attorney with Miller Johnson here in Grand Rapids. I'm working with the
Can you just,
property owner.
can you give us 1 minute? Your voice won't pick up for the live stream. Yeah, you can pass these out first though. Sorry.
Just a visual aid.
We will hear you just fine, but the live stream doesn't.
Again, my name is Eric Sark. I'm an attorney with Miller Johnson here in Grand Rapids, and we represent the property owner. I want to talk just briefly about the sign request. And in the Exhibit A that supports the application that is in your packet, there is a reference there, or a paragraph referencing neighboring signage. And what this shows is just a depiction of what is described in words in that exhibit, and I thought this exhibit or this depiction would help. So what you're looking at here is each red arrow is a monument sign along the west side of the Beltline, and the red square is the subject parcel. And if you look, the sign to the north, I think half of these signs maybe are consolidated with multiple tenants, and the other half are single user signs. And the only point here, which was in the attachment that is in your packet, is that literally, and I think most of the time when people say literally, they don't really mean literally, but literally every parcel except this parcel has a monument sign. And so that is the only thing I wanted to point out. And then I want to talk just briefly about the prior request from 2022. And at the time of that request, there was some discussion amongst the Planning Commission that we should be able to use the big celebration sign that sits along the Beltline. And we've looked into that before, but that is private. The owner of not the Lokes family, the other owner of Celebration, claims ownership over that sign, and he claims a 60% right that he gets to lease to anybody he wants to. And we don't have a right to use that sign, not without a lawsuit, which, unfortunately, that is just the situation out there. And I know I've explained that to Elizabeth, and I've provided the documentation for that and why the owner thinks that, he has the exclusive right to use 60% of that sign. And the other 40% is used by the cinema, and they own the other 40%. So everybody along the frontage really has no right to use that signage unless they pay a handsome fee to the owner, which I think is probably why you see all of these users with their own signage along the Beltline. The other thing that this does is it does consolidate all of the tenants into one sign. There's no risk of having another tenant come along that wants a separate sign. And there was also a comment at the last, again, I'm talking cup 22, with the urgent care user, there was some discussion about, well, is somebody really going to, who needs to go to an urgent care, are they really going to be driving down the Beltline and look for a sign? The odds are that they probably know where they're going, which was another kind of justification why maybe a sign wasn't as critical here. I do understand that. Hospitals probably don't need signage. I mean, you know where you're going. This is a little different. This is a retail user. There's obviously other vet users in town. In today's kind of where we are today, signage is critical for these retail users. And we're really not asking for anything that we believe everybody else along the Beltline here has. We don't believe that it would create any excessive visual interference. So those are just things I wanted to clarify with respect to signage. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? All right. I'll open up the public hearing for anyone who would like to comment on this case. Make your way up to the microphone. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and turn to Planning Commission discussion.
I guess I have a question about the parking. So in our staff report, it says nothing over 20% unless approved by Planning Commission and based on a parking demand study. So do we have the documentation to support that?
No, Elizabeth and I talked about it. We haven't typically required that for sites that are already built out.
Okay.
So if the parking wasn't there, those are the times, and/or if there is a significantly larger development and surface parking associated with the project.
Okay.
In this particular case, the site was recently constructed, albeit for a different tenant. Recall that there was some parking concerns associated with the new hotel, as well as with the 5-story multifamily that's planned for it. Knowing that the parking is shared within the development versus each individual pad, I guess Elizabeth and I made the decision that it didn't feel necessary to go to that next step.
Okay.
Understanding the Planning Commission might not agree with that assessment, but that's where we landed.
No, I just wanted to make sure our hands weren't tied to that. Got it. Thank you.
The monument sign, I remember seeing the drawings and things. Are they pretty consistent up and down the street in terms of design at these different access points? I saw it was kind of brick with the 3.
Yeah, and actually drove it this morning and just videoed it just so I would have it. Oh, sorry. So the answer is generally yes. What I saw were multiple signs laid out horizontally, and then you have like the space where the Qdoba is. I don't know if you're how familiar you are with that area. They have vertical panels, but most seem to be laid out horizontally in squares similar to what's proposed.
Okay.
I don't have any issue with the parking. I think what was built in good faith with an intended tenant, multiple tenants. So I don't have any problem with that.
And I don't have a problem with the monument signs. In fact, I feel like they're at a lower level. I was driving down Alpine yesterday, first time in a long time, and there are just so many signs up in the air, and they're all of a different design kind of, and it gets really confusing, whereas I think when I drive down the East Beltline, well, yes, there's a lot of development there. The monument signs at least aren't as distracting as I think, the larger on a pole kinds of signs. So given that others have it, it seems only fair that they would be able to construct something within the parameters of what we want to see along there and consistent with what has been allowed before.
Sorry, not to throw a monkey wrench in our very nice party here, but I feel like we're asking for an amendment to the plan sign program. I want to clarify some things. The amendment essentially would give them the right to build a sign, a monument sign in this space, which we did not do the last time they came for us, because what are some of the reasons? I heard the lawyer give some reasons, but what are the reasons we didn't give?
Yeah, so I think we said they could use that bigger sign for the development. I also, and then the justification that you would know where you're going. If you're going to urgent care, you're not going to be looking on the side of the street. And also the fact that people are driving pretty quickly down this stretch, and so a monument sign, I'm not sure how effective it would be. That's what I can remember. Yeah.
For the other signs here, I don't remember them, but I know I can have a bad memory sometimes. All of the other signs here on East Beltline, did we approve those, let's say, in the last 5 years, or are they grandfathered in? Why do they need an amendment, but those other signs did not?
Well, some of them would have been a part of the original plan, the development itself, when the plan sign program was created. I would wager to guess that there were amendments to allow it, but I don't remember the history of when all of those signs were added. Elizabeth, I don't know if you do.
I don't remember all the history, but I do know that the waterworks sign, or formerly waterworks, the car wash, wherever that is, that sign was part of the original plan sign program when it was developed. The one in front of Hopcat, that was a later amendment, and that came when whatever that was approved there got approval to move from near the street further back, and then the Planning Commission allowed that a sign associated with that.
I think, too, there was the initial expectation that signage would be shared among the development entry signs. That apparently has not been the case as ownership has changed, and the condominium association, I think, took control from the original ownership structure. There's also, I believe, the Mr. Car Wash was initially conceived as a development entry sign, and was probably, the verbiage was more general as to what was what the sign was intended for. But with the 2015 Supreme Court case of Reed versus Gilbert, the city's ability to control the content of that sign was significantly different. And therefore, again, it became a management and ownership decision as to who got to use what sign and who didn't get to use signs. So there's a bit of history that's probably very confusing as to what was initially conceived in the rules and regulations in effect at that time, and then the changes that have taken place both at an ownership level as well as legislative level. I don't know if that helps you or just complicates it more.
It muddies the waters more, but all in all, we're not picking on them. Grand Rapids Retail Management LLC, we're not picking on them because we don't like their colors. We don't like, sorry, this is the ordinance in the city. And so they have to come here in order to get an amendment to the plan sign program in order to make this sign.
Yes, I think they're asking for the Planning Commission to provide them with some flexibility because the ownership structure has limited their ability, which is not your problem.
Right.
The ownership has limited their ability to advertise on the signs that are in place. So they are now asking the Planning Commission for some flexibility for the advertisement that they feel they need, or the identification, wayfinding that they feel they need.
Got you. Not that this matters, but I guess my last question is, are there any of those signs along East Beltline or even that shared one that have empty spaces?
Not that I could recall, and not that I'm seeing on Google Maps.
Okay.
Some of the signs that are identified here, I think, are also in a different plan sign program, which is probably here nor there, but there is some nuances there as well. But I believe that they are all of the panels are filled.
Got you. Thank you.
Yeah, my recollection of the 2022 case, we were not privy to the information that they would not be allowed to use the large sign at the entrance, for one. And just to go on what Kristen was saying, the purpose and intent of a planned sign program is intended to be used for multiple signs for large project development areas and integrated complexes. The ordinance doesn't do a very good job of addressing a large development that's been parceled out to different owners, which again is not our issue per se, but partly why we're here today.
It's not, but of course, we want the shopping plaza to be successful, and the overall health and vibrancy of it is a concern of yours, of course. But, yeah, the individual identification is a little bit challenging.
I got a question that'll probably get me in trouble with the lawyers, but if that shared sign was indeed shared, would this be an issue for, let's say, the next tenant? Let's say, God forbid, this tenant falls through, another tenant wants to come in, whole different kind of shop. They get access to that shared sign. Would this still be an issue for them? And would the planning commission be more amenable to allowing them to have a monument sign, being that they would have access to that shared sign?
I don't know how to answer that or speculate on what you would or wouldn't decide. I think you've got your standards, you've got the circumstances. These are always fact-specific decisions, and these are the facts that you have before you. I don't feel like I'm being helpful to your questions.
You are.
It's difficult to speculate. Again, I would encourage you to use your standards and make fact-specific decisions.
I would just add that if the larger sign is privately controlled, that could change at any moment. This commission has no control over that. It's unrelated to land use. Whatever the arrangement is could change in any way at any moment. So maybe that's not helpful either.
No, this is very helpful. I'm going to an end point here.
I'm not sure, for me, that it makes a difference whether that would become available to a different user or not. In defense of Commissioner Joseph and Commissioner Roseboom, who stripped that ground sign out of our previous approval, I'll point out that Sarah stated in our 2022 hearing that none of the other tenants within the development have their own ground sign, which I'm not sure is actually the case. Per testimony today, we can see that Hopcat has their own ground sign. The car wash has a ground sign. There's several other ground signs, maybe not in this PRD, but in adjacent PRDs in this district. So I think maybe we may have been confused about what other tenants had access to or not. I don't have a problem with this at all, considering its placement, location, size. It seems very appropriate, and the use as well.
I would agree. I don't really have a problem with the sign. The parking is frustrating, but it's in. I don't think it's worth tearing out. The only thing I would say is that the sign placement on the site plan and the landscape plan are different, and I prefer the placement on the landscape plan, which has it further back off of the right-of-way and into the sort of island of sorts in the parking area. So I would just request that that be the placement.
Trying to catch up with you, I'm sorry, that you prefer the landscape plan?
The site plan indicates that the sign is closer to the right-of-way of East Beltline than the landscape plan, and I prefer the landscape plan location. It's not dimensioned on the landscape plan, but it appears visually to be quite different. The landscape plan appears to be inset more to the west, which I think is preferable.
Thank you for clarifying. Yes.
To govern that.
Pardon me?
That would govern location.
It does have standards for it, yeah.
We're also in the East Beltline overlay district, which we'll have to comply with the setbacks requirements there as well.
All right. Contrary to what y'all might think, I do think, given the facts, what they're requesting is reasonable. And the use also is appropriate. in this location. I will make a motion. This isn't a recommendation, right? It's just,
No, it's not a recommendation.
okay, great, thank you very much. Now therefore be it resolved that the Planning Commission approves the request of Grand Rapids Retail Management 2 LLC, Jordan Chapman, for a special land use and site plan review approval to establish a veterinary clinic in a new building at 2135 East Beltline Avenue Northeast for the following reasons. The proposed use will be consistent with the purpose and intent of the master plan and zoning ordinance, including the zone district, because the proposed use will support the vitality of the overall development and destination-oriented, high-intensity businesses and services with dependence on motor vehicles are anticipated in the town center location of the East Beltline. The proposed use will meet the site plan review standards of Section 5.12.8.e because the existing site layout and building elements were designed to meet the requirements of the special district planned redevelopment district. The proposed use will be compatible, harmonious, and appropriate with the character and uses of the neighborhood, adjacent properties, and the natural environment, because the proposed use will support the desired future character of the neighborhood by providing a variety of personal services. The use will complement other uses in the development. The proposed use will not have adverse effects on the neighborhood because adequate parking will be provided and the building orientation will not change. The proposed uses will not be detrimental, hazardous, or disturbing to existing or future uses or to the public welfare by reason of excessive traffic, noise, or odors, because weekday operating hours are limited to early evening hours and no boarding of animals will be conducted as part of this use. The proposed use will not adversely affect the walkability of the neighborhood, impair pedestrian circulation patterns, disrupt the continuity of the urban street wall, or hinder the creation of a pedestrian-oriented environment, because the site design is not specific to the proposed use. Adequate public or private infrastructure and services already exist or will be provided at no additional cost. The proposed use will not be detrimental to the financial stability or economic welfare of the city because the use will not place unfair burden on city services, and the use will encourage other investment in the area. Be it further resolved that the following conditions of approval shall apply to this project. Standard condition set A, approvals, is shown on the screen. And that is it.
Oh.
Go ahead. Oh.
I didn't know if you'd expect a condition to address Commissioner Younker's comment.
Oh, please.
Sorry.
I think it's fine. I
think it's the same location on.
Well, there's some weird line work on the landscape plan, but I'm comfortable with the whatever or the regulations.
Just adhere to the base, right? Okay.
Yeah,
That's fine. We don't need a condition for that then.
We did a separate,
Oh, is there,
if you wanted to include that, the signage in there, you could.
oh, great, okay. Yes. All right, so I guess the beginning of this, added on to the therefore be it resolved that the Planning Commission approves a special land use and site plan review and the request of Grand Rapids Retail Management 2 LLC for, to establish, now I'm looking at a different thing here, to establish a veterinary clinic in a new building as well as an amendment to the plan sign program for Celebration Village for a ground sign at 2135 East Beltline. Or do someone else want to give that motion? That'd be great.
I think you might want to keep them separate at this point because your findings are now all.
Fair. All right. Strike that. Sorry, Carol.
Sorry, Carol.
Okay,
so
we have a motion. Do we have support?
Support.
Any further discussion?
Nice.
Is everybody clear on what we're voting on?
Yes, not the sign right now.
Just the building part first?
Yeah.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
I'll take the sign one. Now therefore be it resolved that the Planning Commission approves the request of Grand Rapids Retail Management 2 LLC, Jordan Chapman, for an amendment to the plan sign program of Celebration Village for a ground sign at 2135 East Beltline Avenue Northeast for the following reasons. The applicant has demonstrated that the proposed plan sign program amendment would result in more attractive aesthetic setting, improved safety, and provide more convenient identification for planned users or other similar purposes, because the proposed amendment will allow signage typically permitted by the underlying East Beltline Overlay District and allow for adequate and effective signs for identification and appropriate commercial speech. That the location and/or physical characteristics of the applicant's property or the needs for identification are unique when compared to other similarly situated parcels in the same zone district and in the same vicinity, because the overall development consists of approximately 40 acres and is comprised of multiple uses. The applicant has demonstrated that the proposed plan substantially furthers the purposes and intent of Section 5.15.01 because the proposed amendment would protect the need to promote new business within Celebration Village development. The applicant has demonstrated that approval of the Plan Sign Program amendment would not create any adverse impacts on one or more properties in the vicinity because the proposed amendment reinforces and supports the character of the surrounding development by taking into account building scale and massing and nearby travel speeds, balances the need and right to communicate with needs to promote orderly communication, promote community aesthetics, and prevent a proliferation of signs and sign structures that can be confusing and distracting, and will ensure that signs are located, designated, constructed, installed, and maintained in a way that protects life, health, property, and public welfare. Okay. Be it further resolved that the following conditions of approval shall apply to this project. Standard conditions, set A, approvals, striking 3, 5, and 7.
Support.
We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
The next item on the agenda is the same applicant, different location. This is 1935 Breton Avenue Southeast. It is subject to a conditional rezoning agreement. As you can see, we have C across the street where we have Breton Village Mall, and on the west side of the street is NOS, Neighborhood Office Service. And the applicant wanted to establish an urgent care there. An urgent care is slightly different than a medical office, so it could not be allowed. So the applicant requested a conditional rezoning to MCNC to establish an urgent care, which was approved. The urgent care is no longer being pursued, but fortunately, we included in the conditional rezoning agreement a provision that it could be an urgent care or anything else allowed in the NOS zone district. Yay! So, a veterinary clinic is a special land use. So, they're proposing a veterinary clinic. Just like we discussed previously, standard daytime use for a veterinary clinic, no boarding except for animals that might have had surgery. Again, the building is exactly the same, except that what was previously proposed as spandrel will not be spandrel. So no spandrel glass here. So it's pretty much the same building. So it will need to meet the requirements of the NOS zone district anyway. And so we're not really looking at the site or the building here, just the veterinary office use. The other thing that unfortunately I need to mention is parking. And they're proposing the same parking lot that was proposed for the urgent care, which required 6 spaces per 1,000 square feet. That comes out to be 32 spaces. A veterinary clinic requires 3 spaces per 1,000. So This is, as proposed, it's going to be overparked. This has not been constructed, unlike the last one, okay? It's still a vacant site. So, perhaps we could talk to the applicant a little more about their actual parking needs here. If you do find that, that it will have a higher parking demand, like we have seen for other animal care uses, it was an emergency clinic up on Plainfield Avenue, so it was slightly different, but we could talk about whether there is a need for a higher parking demand here. So that's one option. Two, just maximum parking allowed for this use, which would be 16. Alternatively, we could do a deferred parking agreement where if they do show us that additional parking is needed with the submittal of a parking demand study, then administratively they could construct additional parking at a later date. I hope that made some sense. But so in sum, we're looking at a veterinary clinic that would be operating during daytime hours with no boarding and no outdoor use.
Any questions for Elizabeth? Thank you.
Hi, Jordan Chapman again. Do you need me to say the address for the record, or? So similar situation as the last time, same brand or parent company really shifting to another brand. A few things I just would like to clarify. We did start construction here, as you can see by the overall aerial. We did demolish the former bank use. And before we kind of got wind or started having conversations with the tenant about their plans to kind of put things on hold and really with the future in loom, we did construct all the underground utilities. So out there on site now, you have a gravel lot that has the stormwater infrastructure underneath, which is a huge reason as to why, to keep the site plan consistent. We actually, before this meeting, had a conversation with our neighbor to the west, Donovan Visser. He's in support of what we're trying to do here. I think he's excited, for the new user to come in, for the lot to be improved. He's been extremely patient and great to work with along the way. I guess when it comes to the parking, what I can say is a lot of these national brands that we work with, not similar to the last project, they have they kind of know their demand on parking and users very well, given that they have so many locations in various regions, or it's not a one-off or local user. So the parking that we show on site is definitely something that they would push for, to accommodate, their customers, but also the 7 to 10 employees that they'd be looking to house on site. So I believe we have 32 spaces as shown, and 7 to 10, not to assume that, every user will use their own, a vehicle for transportation. Some may use, bicycle or public transportation, but it's just something else to take into consideration, given that with the change of use, we are at 32 spaces versus, the reduction of what the code states. Trying to think. On the architectural elevations, they are slightly different. The material is the same. The color scheme is slightly different just because of the brand. We did lose the spandrel after talking, which is now retired, Andy Bowman. The spandrel would have presented an issue as we had seen it shown on the Well Now Urgent Care. So we were able to work with the tenant on adjusting their floor plan to relocate the restroom to a different location to meet the transparency requirement on that east elevation. One of the other items he had brought up was the building height, and specifically the parapet height. So this elevation looks maybe a little, it doesn't have like the architectural feature, and, now what we're showing is compliant with, sorry, I think I bumped it, compliant with code. So that's kind of why you'd see the deviation from what was previously proposed to what's being proposed now. And that will have adequate screening for the rooftop units. So I guess if there's any other questions you may have, I'm happy to answer them. But I think a lot of the last, application, kind of covers, the intent and, how we are here today.
I appreciate the commentary on the parking from the operator's perspective, and I generally defer to an operator like that and their experience. My question, though, was that specific to this site? Because this site has lots of parking all around the whole neighborhood, right? So is that a greenfield type?
I'm not sure I fully understand the question. Are you talking about parking that's off our property, or parking that specific to the on-site?
Yeah, I guess available in the whole area. Because just follow me, if you ask a national operator how much parking do you need, they're going to tell you exactly what they need as if they exist in zero context, right? Mm-hmm. But we have a context here, and it's very highly parking spaced. So
yeah. I guess, I'm not sure what type of agreements are in place. I know that we have a cross-access agreement with Donovan to the west, but I'm not aware of any parking easements that exist today with the bank user to the south or anyone to the east or west. So I'm not fully confident without having the information in front of me. I'm not sure we necessarily have the right to park on the neighbor's property. I guess that would be my one concern, just with that commentary.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, I think my concern is what you've proposed here is the exact same site plan as before, and said your new user is the exact same parking requirements as your previous one, but haven't really demonstrated that in any type of way other than just the statement. So for us to approve, a significant increase over maximum parking requirements takes some type of, usually a study or some type of, indication that parking is required. I look at the site plan and say even 7 to 10 employees, that you don't have room for more than 7 to 10 clients at a time in the building. 32 parking spaces seems excessive, and it's not built yet. So
I'm happy to gather more facts from the user or the brand. This is the parking requirements that they were given to us. I think, part of it, I'm happy. I guess I'm happy to ask them, for more context as to, their requirements, but that's just the information that I have on hand.
I guess it feels to me as though, not even the title block on the plan was changed from the previous submission. So it just feels like it was just an easy button to hit, but was there actually a conversation, and 32 spaces is what this tenant actually needs, and it just happens to be the exact same as the previous?
There's actually, we've been conversating with them for almost a year now. We've probably done between 25 to 35 different conceptual plans on this site to accommodate, various square footages of their prototype of the veterinary hospital or the clinic, as well as other multi-tenant plans. And everything's really come down to parking with them. I'm happy to share those plans, but the point of conversation with them has really been on parking and I guess obviously the visibility, the building placement, trying to have it as close to the setback line. But those are really the two things that we had been talking about with them for probably 10, 11 months now. So I know there's been extensive conversations on it, but that's kind of where we are here. And I guess I'd just like to clarify, we also still have an active LUDS permit based on this plan. And, as a landlord and I guess the developer and general contractor, is being able to still work off that LUDS permit. I think we were we didn't want to feel like we were coming in doing a bait and switch with anyone as far as like the things that had happened over the course of the last year, is that we've been trying to encourage the same building placement, the same plan that we've had the conversations with the associations with Donovan, you guys. So I think that, was also a consideration to be able to operate off the LUDS permit that we started construction with. So I don't know if that fully answers it, but I guess additional context.
Kristen, could you speak to that?
I'm trying to phone my stormwater friends here, and I think it's a little bit more complicated. So I honestly don't know whether, because the utilities are already installed, how simple it would be just to say, well, just don't put asphalt over that. And so I think that that's an important question, because that could be a significant, I'm a little out of my wheelhouse here. It could be a significant challenge for the operator if not adding asphalt for the parking, if the utilities are placed to support the design as proposed. I don't know that it's as simple as just don't pave over top of that site, because that whole site was considered and permitted as part of a larger system. And I'm looking at my engineer friend. So I think, from a staff perspective, we'd probably need a little bit more time to connect with our engineers to understand if it's something as simple as, well, let's just not pave it because the underground utilities have already been installed.
Yeah, I think, I'm a civil engineer by training. I think the stormwater design system was put in place to handle the current asphalt. The entire site is currently asphalt, or is currently gravel based. Mm-hmm. So eliminating 7 or so parking spaces, I would think, would only add to the efficacy of the existing stormwater structures in place. And yeah, the entire site is gravelled now, yep. Even the green spaces. So fair question. I don't see a challenge with it. I see it actually benefit to the landlord to not produce the parking. But again, if there's a strong reason for the parking, I'm open to it, but I'm just not seeing it.
Yeah, it sounds like our stormwater engineer is concurring with that, although in fairness, he's going based off what I'm saying on a text. So I don't know that's really fair to make a decision based on that, but it does sound, to your point, Commissioner Yonker, that there are opportunities to work with the existing permit, not pave certain areas, and still have the stormwater system that's been installed work effectively. Otherwise, if this amount of parking is necessary, what I think I'm hearing is the need for some additional documentation from the applicant to justify the amount of parking that's being requested, in which case that could be through a postponement of a decision to allow you that time to come back.
I guess, would you guys be providing me, I'm sorry, I keep hitting this mouse. Would you guys be providing me with specifics on what you're looking for? I guess I just want to have a goal line of the information that I'm chasing and what I would need to provide. And then I guess the second question is, you mentioned that, not seeing an issue with reducing the parking by 7 spaces or whatever the quantity is, but 7 spaces doesn't necessarily get you to code ordinance either. One thing I am absolutely certain on is that 16 spaces, based on, the code for this user, would definitely not be sufficient based on, the employees and, the customer base or the consumer. So if, we're talking 7 spaces, that reduces you down to 25, I'm still faced with the same issue of being overparked per code.
I think for me personally, and it's just for me, but there's not a specific, if I'm reading the staff report correctly, there's not a specific user in the code that is veterinary facility, but we're going between a personal services facility or a medical dental use. Even the medical dental uses would give you 25 spaces. I would be comfortable at that level. That feels more reasonable than the 32 we have here, which would just could potentially just eliminate the 7 on the northerly most edge of the, the 7 along the north side of the lot.
I guess, thanks for the clarification on how you got to that, so that makes more sense. I guess standing here today, I feel, I don't feel compelled to make a decision that's something that I'd have to force on my end without consulting my end user. I guess my fear would be that, I sit up here today and say I'm comfortable with 25 spaces, which honestly, from a cost standpoint on my end is probably cheaper because I'm just seeding grass. It's a little more curb, but you're reducing asphalt. But my fear is that I have a user that, because of operational reasons, now they have parking concerns, and I committed themselves to less parking than what they had already signed off on.
Well, I don't think that's necessarily true, because you could move forward with the 25 spaces today, and then that gets you in this is, of course, Planning Commission's decision, but you could move forward potentially with 25 spaces today if approved, and then come back to the Planning Commission to ask, and providing that justification, to increase it up to 32. So that is another option for you.
So would that be if we're standing just talking out loud, would today be a conditional approval based on 25 spaces, but could be eligible for 32 with proper documentation, and I guess whatever the criteria is you're looking for? Because
I wouldn't call it a conditional approval. I would call it, you would get approved for a veterinarian clinic for up to 25 spaces.
Mm-hmm.
You can then know in your head that you can come back to the Planning Commission to ask for an amendment with the appropriate documentation to justify the need for additional parking, and Elizabeth can definitely provide you with what information you'd need.
Okay. Do you have any recommendation?
What would constitute appropriate documentation? Just the occupant or their number of employees plus, how do you document that need?
Yeah. A parking demand analysis is outlined in Article 10 of the zoning ordinance.
Okay.
And so there are specific criteria that would be required.
And if I was able to determine after this meeting that they were able to be, they could live with 25 spaces, is it my discretion at what spaces would be removed? I assume you'd be correct that it'd be the northerly most, but.
Yeah, that's fine with me. Unless I'm just one voice. I haven't heard anybody else say anything about parking, so maybe no one else cares, and I can be the lone voice, and you don't have to worry about it. It's just for me, it becomes I'd rather see less pervious surface on a site than more parking if it's not required.
You're not alone.
And I think that's what you definitely hear from even our civil engineers probably, would voice, similar things. And I know it's not apples to apples, but I think the East Beltline Center is kind of, given that site was constructed after the fact, I think it's kind of living proof of, per ordinance now based on our end user, we're technically overparked. But if you were to talk with Betsy Hernandez, who's a part of the neighborhood association, and just if you've had the chance to go out there during business hours, is that Starbucks really flourishes. And I think you'd hear a lot of concerns from other people of, we don't have enough parking. Because when I was fortunate enough to meet with Betsy or the neighborhood, the first thing she said, she's like, "Are you going to have enough parking for this?" Per code, if you're just going black and white off per code, the answer would be you're overparked. Absolutely, you have enough parking. But when operations truly take, buildings built, staff's hired, and customers are coming in, you kind of see the demand, in real time, to where now she has the concern of, the Starbucks is very busy. It's like, do you have enough? And I reassured her and walked her through the plan, and sent her photos to kind of get her on the same page. But
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant at this time?
No.
Okay. Then we'll open up the public hearing for anyone who would like to comment on the case. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and turn to further discussion.
I appreciate Commissioner Jonker's concerns. However, I think we're kind of, it's not a huge amount. with other development in the area, it's just not a top concern for me, just saying that, on the parking.
I mean, they're asking for double what would be the maximum, so I guess, I think there is, well,
I don't see how this is significantly different than an urgent care user. Just because it doesn't fit nicely into the text of our ordinance, I don't think that how it operates is much different than an urgent care. It has 6 exam rooms, it has a waiting area, 7 to 10 employees. I agree, 16 parking spaces is 100% not enough.
but is 32 necessary?
But what I'm saying is 25 is the required amount for a medical office.
Okay.
They could go up to 32 based on the square footage with our maximum allowed. So that's how I read the staff report, is not that 25 would be allowed, but 25 would be the required amount allowed. 32, as requested, is what would be allowed as the maximum amount if we treated this as a medical office rather than a personal services or other services user.
My view is that I believe their request for what they think they need is sincere. My only observation is that there might be a way to get that off-site. Again, the district has lots of parking, but not under their control, and that's not what they're proposing, so.
Well, as much as, I mean, you know, I want to see trees and green space, but I'm not sure that a redesign of their parking lot, potentially a redesign of their parking lot to free up 6 spaces is necessary. You know, it could potentially, I mean, I've been at a vet hospital at 10 o'clock at night. Is this urgent care for vets or just regular? Oh, okay, all right. Okay, well, that makes me feel a little different. But I don't know, I'm okay, I'm comfortable with the parking. Up to 32, correct?
I'll take the temperature of the room here. Are we ready for a motion? Everybody convicted? All right.
I can do it. Now therefore be it resolved that the Planning Commission approves the request of Grand Rapids Retail Management LLC, Jordan Chapman, for special land use and site plan review approval to establish a veterinary clinic in a new building at 1935 Breton Avenue Southeast for the following reasons. The proposed use will be consistent with the purpose and intent of the master plan and zoning ordinance, including the zone district. Because the proposed use will support the vitality of the business district, the proposed use will provide a mix of uses in a commercial area and small-scale office and service uses that serve the immediate neighborhood and which, by their nature, have minimal effects upon surrounding land uses and public infrastructure anticipated in the NOS zone district. The proposed use will be compatible, harmonious, and appropriate with character and uses of the neighborhood, adjacent properties, and the natural environment, because the proposed use will support the desired future character of the neighborhood by providing a variety of personal services, and the use will complement other uses in the development. The proposed use will not have adverse effects on the neighborhood because the building and site will be designed to meet requirements of the NOS zone district. The proposed uses will not be detrimental, hazardous, or disturbing to existing or future uses or to the public welfare by reason of excessive traffic, noise, or odors. Because weekday operating hours are limited to early evening hours, excessive noise is not anticipated as no outdoor activity shall be conducted. No boarding of animals will be conducted as part of this use. The proposed use will not adversely affect the walkability of the neighborhood, impair pedestrian circulation patterns, disrupt the continuity of the urban street wall, or hinder the creation of pedestrian-oriented environment because the new building will reestablish the street wall. Adequate public or private infrastructure and services do already exist or will be provided at no additional cost because the proposed use will be adequately served by existing public or private infrastructure. The proposed use will not be detrimental to the financial stability and/or economic welfare of the city because the use will not place an unfair burden on city services, and the use will encourage other investment in the area. Be it further resolved that the following conditions of approval shall apply to this project. Standard condition set A approvals on the screen.
Second.
We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Now we'll take a 30-minute break.
The last item on the agenda is a request to add alcohol service and alcohol service in association with outdoor seating for an existing pastry shop. It's at 140 Monroe Center Northwest, and it looks like this. And my French is horrible, so I won't even pronounce the name. So the establishment has been there for several years. It's about 1,500 or 1,600 square feet in area, and the applicant plans to add alcohol service for their use. Minimal interior improvements will be proposed. The indoor occupancy is 32 patrons. The applicant has already been operating with outdoor seating. This is the sketch for the outdoor seating that was approved with the outdoor seating permit. And so they'll continue to get that, and they just wish to add alcohol. They do wish to extend their hours of operation a bit with the alcohol addition to 10 p.m. during weekdays and midnight on the weekends. Outdoor seating hours will cease at 10 p.m. every day. The applicant did submit an operations management plan which adequately addresses the management of alcohol service on the premises. As you are aware, downtown, we do have a number of establishments that serve alcohol for on-site consumption, and this is also a social zone, and the applicant would, as I understand it, be pursuing approval to be part of that. We haven't received any letters of support or opposition for this use. And with that, I'll answer any questions or turn it over to the applicant.
Hi, I'm Bobby Blanton, and I am currently the owner of Les Macarons. I always forget it's 140 Monroe, but 132 Monroe. We are just looking to expand to have a very small specialty cocktail menu that would really have dessert-themed seasonal drinks. So, for instance, the fall season's coming up, and so we were thinking of like spiked hot chocolate, hot espresso martinis, things like that. So probably a 5 or 6 that would pair with all of our desserts. And then the summertime, more summer themed to go with our desserts. We find that a lot of our customers just come and quickly leave. And we have cute seating and things like that when we would really encourage them to just stay a little bit longer. So that's really it. Any questions?
It appears that there's no big changes to the layout there.
There's no changes that we are going to do the layout except for just some maybe cabinetry to do storage of glasses and things like that. So we're planning on keeping everything the same layout.
Okay, thank you. We'll open up the public hearing. We'll close the public hearing. Turn to discussion.
Seems to be the trend that we add alcohol use with haircuts and now macarons and hair and other items that we've seen over the last few weeks. So I don't really have any questions other than if you get more usage out of things, then all the better.
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of district that you want this in, right? Like, you're right across from Rosa Parks Circle, so having some outdoor seating there. I think the limited alcohol use is completely reasonable and complements the existing business, and yeah, I'm all for it.
I agree. I think this is it's a great idea. It's a good spot for it. Yeah, I don't.
Someone not? Christy?
All right.
There it is.
They made me make one my first meeting.
Lawrence has a broken arm, otherwise I would have done it. Now therefore be it resolved that the Planning Commission approves the special land use approval and site plan review request of WB Blanton Enterprises LLC, Bobby Blanton, to allow alcohol service and outdoor seating in association with the existing pastry shop at 140 Monroe Center Street Northwest for the following reasons. The proposed use will be consistent with the master, with the purpose and intent of the master plan and zoning ordinance, including the zone district, because the proposed use will support the vitality of local economy by encouraging investment, diversifying the economic base, and expanding employment opportunities in the downtown area with a welcoming and vibrant business district, and will further support the recommendation by the GR Forward Plan, which identifies Monroe Center Street as a targeted retail and entertainment corridor. The proposed use will meet the site plan review standards of section 5.12.08E because the outdoor seating area has been designed to meet all standards and requirements with the modifications permitted by the zoning ordinance. The proposed use will be compatible, harmonious, and appropriate with the character and uses of the neighborhood, adjacent properties, and the natural environment because, given the character, location, development trends, and other aspects of the neighborhood, the proposed location for alcohol sales will be an asset to the neighborhood because the use will contribute to the vitality of the business district, and the proposed outdoor hours of operations are similar to other establishments in the area. Potential adverse effects arising from the proposed use will be minimized because the site is located in the vicinity of other businesses that have alcohol sales and have similar hours of operation, and the relatively small size of the outdoor seating is anticipated to have minimal effects on the downtown area. The proposed use will not be detrimental, hazardous, or disturbing to the existing or future uses to the public welfare because no outdoor live entertainment is proposed and the outdoor seating hours will cease by 10 p.m. daily. The proposed use will not adversely affect the walkability of the neighborhood, impair pedestrian circulation patterns, disrupt the continuity of the urban street wall, or hinder the creation of a pedestrian-oriented environment because the site is located in a social district with nearby public transit and public parking facilities nearby, and the outdoor seating will contribute to the vitality and walkability of the downtown area. The proposed use will not be detrimental to the financial stability and/or economic welfare of the city because the use is not anticipated to result in nuisances that require code enforcement actions, and the use will encourage other investment in the area. The proposed use will comply with all other applicable city ordinances and policies and all applicable state laws. Given the character, location, development trends, and other aspects of the neighborhood, the proposed location for alcohol sales will demonstrably be an asset to the neighborhood because there is a demand for this type of use in the neighborhood, and this use will contribute to an already vibrant commercial district. The use or change in use as constructed and operated by the applicant is compatible with the neighborhood because the scale of the operation is compatible with other uses in the area, and the proposed outdoor hours of operation are consistent with other establishments in the vicinity. The use as proposed will be operated by the use as proposed to be operated by the applicant will minimize or eliminate negative secondary effects on the neighborhood because an alcohol management plan will be in place. Be it further resolved that the following conditions of approval shall apply to this project. Standard conditions set A approvals on the screen. Number 2, that the applicant shall obtain a temporary use permit annually for the outdoor seating use. 3, that indoor hours of operations are 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. weekdays, Sunday through Thursday, and 10 a.m. to midnight weekends, Friday and Saturday. That the outdoor, and 4, that the outdoor seating shall operate no later than 10 p.m. daily.
Support.
We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes. We'll open up for public comment. Seeing none, we'll close the public comment period. Any further discussion for the commission? We are adjourned.